The Billionaire Tycoon mocked the cleaner for her accent until she spoke 7 languages fluently. The 42nd floor of Morrison Financial Group's Manhattan headquarters gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights at 6:30 a.m. Elena Vasquez pushed her cleaning cart through the marble corridors, her worn sneakers making soft squeaking sounds against the polished floor. The building was still mostly empty, save for a few ambitious associates who arrived early to impress their superiors. Elena had been cleaning these offices for 3 years, watching the same faces hurry past her as if she were invisible. She preferred the early morning shift. Fewer people meant fewer chances for uncomfortable encounters. Her English, though functional, carried the melodic accent of her native Guatemala, something that had drawn unwanted attention more times than she cared to remember. She methodically worked through each office, emptying trash cans, dusting surfaces, and organizing papers that executives had carelessly scattered. In her previous life, the one before economic collapse forced her family to flee, she had been Dr. Elena Vasquez, a linguistics professor at Universidad de San Carlos. Now she was simply the cleaner to most people in this building. As she entered the executive conference room, Elena noticed someone had left behind a stack of international contracts in what appeared to be Mandarin, Arabic, and Portuguese. She couldn't help but glance at them, her academic mind automatically translating the legal terminology. The Chinese contract contained several grammatical errors that would likely cause problems in court, while the Arabic version had mistranslated a crucial clause about liability. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" A sharp voice cut through her thoughts. Elena looked up to see Marcus Morrison III, the company's CEO, standing in the doorway. At 38, he had inherited the firm from his father and grandfather, building it into a multinational empire through aggressive expansion and cost-cutting measures. His tailored Tom Ford suit probably cost more than Elena made in 6 months. "Clean the room, sir?" Elena replied, her accent more pronounced when she was nervous. "I no touch the papers, only dust around." Marcus's expression hardened. He strode into the room, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble. "Those are confidential documents. You shouldn't even be looking at them." Sorry, sir, I just..." "And speak properly," Marcus interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. "This is America. If you're going to work here, at least learn to speak English correctly." "I am sorry, and I was just..." "It's not that difficult." Elena's cheeks burned with embarrassment and anger. She had been speaking English for over a decade, had taught it alongside 5 other languages at university level, but the stress of her circumstances sometimes made her stumble over words. "Yes, sir, I am sorry." Marcus picked up the contracts, shuffling through them with obvious irritation. "These international deals are complex enough without having to worry about..." He gestured dismissively at Elena. "Just finish your work and stay away from anything that doesn't involve cleaning supplies." As Elena quietly resumed her cleaning, Marcus continued to mutter under his breath about hiring standards and communication barriers. She heard him on a phone call with his assistant, scheduling meetings with translators and international law firms to review the very documents she had been examining. When Elena finished the conference room, she moved to Marcus's corner office. The space was a monument to success and ego. Awards, photographs with politicians and celebrities, and a wall dedicated to his Harvard MBA and various honorary degrees. What struck Elena most was a framed quote on his desk. "Success is not about where you come from, but where you're going." The irony wasn't lost on her. As she dusted his bookshelf, Elena noticed several books on international business, most with bookmarks early in their pages, abandoned attempts at understanding global markets. One book on Chinese business culture was still shrink-wrapped. Another on Middle Eastern commerce had coffee stains on page 12, suggesting Marcus had given up after the introduction. Elena finished her work just as Marcus returned from his phone calls. He barely acknowledged her presence as she gathered, her supplies treating her as part of the furniture. As she wheeled her cart toward the elevator, she heard him on another call, this time discussing the urgent need for cultural consultants and translators for upcoming international negotiations. "I need someone who really understands these markets," Marcus was saying. Someone who can speak their language, literally and figuratively. This expansion into Asia and the Middle East is crucial for our Q4 projections. Elena pressed the elevator button, her mind racing. She thought about her doctorate in applied linguistics, her fluency in Spanish, English, Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, French, and Italian. She thought about the years she had spent consulting for international corporations, before political instability forced her family to flee Guatemala. She thought about the translation errors in those contracts that could cost Morrison financial millions. But most of all, she thought about Marcus's dismissive words and the assumption that her accent defined her intelligence. The elevator doors opened, and Elena stepped inside, her reflection staring back at her from the polished steel walls. Tomorrow, she decided, would be different. Tomorrow, she would find a way to show Marcus Morrison through that success, indeed, wasn't about where you come from, but it also wasn't about the assumptions you make about others based on how they sound when they speak. The next morning, Elena arrived at Morrison Financial 30 minutes earlier than usual. She had spent the previous evening researching the company's recent international ventures, their failed expansion attempts in Asia, and their struggle to penetrate Middle Eastern markets. What she found confirmed her suspicions. Morrison Financial was hemorrhaging money due to cultural misunderstandings and poor translation services. As she began her cleaning routine, Elena overheard Marcus in his office on a heated conference call with his board of directors. The Shanghai deal fell through because of miscommunication, Marcus was saying, his voice tense with frustration. They said our contract proposals were insulting, but our translators assured us everything was culturally appropriate. Elena paused outside his door, pretending to organize her cleaning supplies while listening to the conversation. And the Dubai project? Came a voice through the speakerphone. That was supposed to be our gateway to the entire region. Dead in the water, Marcus admitted. Apparently, we violated about 6 different cultural protocols in our presentation. The potential partners said we showed complete disrespect for their business customs. Marcus, we've invested over $50 million in international expansion this year, with virtually nothing to show for it. Another board member interjected. At this rate, we'll need to abandon the entire global initiative. Give me 2 weeks, Marcus pleaded. I'm bringing in the best consultants money can buy. Jenkins recommended a firm from Boston that specializes in international business culture. They charge $5,000 a day, but $5,000 a day? The board erupted in protests. Elena continued listening as Marcus defended the exorbitant consultant fees, explaining how critical cultural competency was for international business. She almost laughed at the irony. Here was a man who mocked her accent while desperately seeking the exact expertise she possessed. After the call ended, Elena watched through the glass partition as Marcus slumped in his chair, running his hands through his hair. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Around mid-morning, Elena was cleaning the break room when she noticed a commotion in the main office. A group of executives had gathered around Marcus's office, their voices carrying across the open floor plan. The Boston consultants can't start for 3 weeks, Marcus was explaining to his team. And the board is breathing down my neck for results. What about that firm in D.C.? Suggested Janet, his head of international development. Booked solid until next month, Marcus replied. It seems everyone needs cultural consultants these days. Elena finished wiping down the coffee machine and moved closer, emptying trash cans near the group. Sir, interrupted David, the youngest member of the team, what if we looked for freelance consultants, someone with actual experience in these markets? I'm not trusting our multi-million-dollar deals to some random freelancer, Marcus snapped. We need established firms with proven track records. But sir, the established firms are the ones who've been giving us bad advice, David pointed out carefully. Marcus's jaw tightened. Are you questioning my judgment, David? The young man quickly backpedaled. No, sir, of course not. Elena watched the exchange with growing frustration. She had worked with dozens of international corporations in Guatemala, helping them navigate complex cultural landscapes across Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East. Her reputation had been impeccable, until political upheaval destroyed everything she had built. During her lunch break, Elena sat in the small employee break room in the basement, surrounded by security guards, maintenance workers, and fellow cleaning staff. Most were immigrants like herself, each with their own story of professional lives, left behind in pursuit of safety and opportunity. "You look troubled, Elena," said Carlos, an elderly janitor from El Salvador who had once been a mechanical engineer. "Just thinking about wasted opportunities," Elena replied in Spanish. "The worst prison is the one built by other people's assumptions," Carlos said wisely. "Sometimes you have to break down the walls yourself." That afternoon, Elena made a decision that would change everything. While cleaning Marcus's office, she noticed he had left his laptop open to an email thread about the failed international deals. The losses were even worse than she had overheard. Morrison Financial was facing potential bankruptcy if they couldn't salvage their global expansion. Elena looked around the empty office, then at the business cards scattered across Marcus's desk. She picked up one from the Boston consulting firm, Henderson & Associates, international business culture specialists. Their website showed a team of impressive-looking consultants, all with advanced degrees and corporate headshots. She pulled out her phone and began composing an email to Marcus's assistant, Sarah. Elena had observed Sarah for months and knew she was overworked, underpaid, and desperate for solutions that would make her boss happy. "Dear Sarah," Elena typed carefully, "I represent a freelance cultural consultant with extensive experience in Asian and Middle Eastern markets. Given Morrison Financial's current challenges, I would like to propose a meeting to discuss potential solutions. My client has successfully facilitated international deals worth over $200 million and speaks 7 languages fluently. Unlike larger firms, we can begin immediately and work within your budget constraints. Would Mr. Morrison be available for a brief consultation this week?" Elena hesitated before adding, "My client prefers to remain anonymous initially due to current contracts with competing firms. However, I can provide references from previous international clients upon request." She signed the email Maria Santos, executive assistant, and used a new Gmail account she created on her phone. Within an hour, Sarah had responded with enthusiasm, scheduling a meeting for the following afternoon. Elena stared at the email confirmation, her hands shaking slightly. She had just set in motion a plan that could either reveal her true capabilities or destroy what little stability she had left. That evening, Elena went to the thrift store and spent her carefully saved money on a professional outfit. She also stopped by the library to print documents showcasing her academic credentials and previous consulting work, evidence she had hoped never to need again. As she walked home to her small apartment in Queens, Elena reflected on the path that had led her here. 3 years ago, she had been Dr. Elena Vasquez, respected professor and consultant, living comfortably in Guatemala City with her teenage daughter and elderly mother. Now she was about to impersonate her own fictional representative to prove her worth to a man who had dismissed her based on her accent. The irony was profound, but Elena had learned that sometimes survival required playing by rules that made no sense. Tomorrow, Marcus Morrison would meet the consultant he desperately needed. He just wouldn't know he had been looking at her all along. Elena barely slept that night. She spent hours reviewing her old consulting materials, translating documents, and preparing for what could be the most important meeting of her life. At 5 a.m., she dressed in her thrift store business suit, a navy blazer and matching skirt that, while not designer quality, looked professional enough. She arrived at Morrison Financial at her usual early hour, but with a small suitcase containing her credentials, laptop, and sample work. After completing her regular cleaning routine, Elena changed clothes in the employee restroom and made her way to the lobby as Maria Santos's mysterious client. Sarah greeted her at the reception desk with obvious curiosity. "Ms. Dr. Vasquez," Elena replied confidently, her accent carefully modulated. "Thank you for accommodating this meeting on such short notice. Of course, Mr. Morrison is very eager to discuss your consulting services. Can I get you coffee while you wait?" Elena accepted gratefully, noting how Sarah's demeanor had completely changed from the dismissive politeness she usually showed the cleaning staff. The same person, treated entirely differently based on context and appearance. Marcus emerged from the elevator, extending his hand with the practiced charm of a seasoned businessman. "Dr. Vasquez, pleasure to meet you. I understand you come highly recommended." Elena shook his hand firmly, looking him directly in the eye. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Morrison. I've reviewed your company's recent international initiatives, and I believe I can help." They walked to the same conference room Elena had been cleaning just hours earlier. Marcus gestured for her to sit at the polished mahogany table where she had previously only dusted around the edges. "Your assistant mentioned you prefer to remain anonymous initially," Marcus began. "But I hope you understand we'll need to verify your credentials before moving forward with any substantial engagement." Elena opened her briefcase and slid a folder across the table. "Naturally. Here are my academic credentials, including my doctorate in applied linguistics from Universidad de San Carlos, along with references from previous consulting clients." Marcus scanned the documents, his eyebrows rising as he read. "PhD in applied linguistics with specialization in cross-cultural business communication, fluent in 7 languages, former professor and international business consultant." He looked up. "This is impressive. Why haven't I heard of you?" "I've been working exclusively with Latin American corporations for the past few years," Elena replied smoothly. "However, given the political situation in the region, I'm looking to expand my client base to North American firms." "And you speak—" Marcus checked the document again. "Spanish, English, Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, French, and Italian." "Fluently," Elena confirmed. "Would you like a demonstration?" Without waiting for an answer, Elena switched to Mandarin, explaining the cultural significance of gift-giving in Chinese business relationships. She then seamlessly transitioned to Arabic, discussing the importance of family connections in Middle Eastern commerce, before concluding in Portuguese about Brazilian negotiation styles. Marcus sat in stunned silence for a moment. "That's remarkable. And you understand the business applications of these cultural nuances?" Elena pulled out her laptop and opened a presentation she had prepared. "Let me show you exactly where your recent international initiatives went wrong, and how to fix them." For the next hour, Elena dissected Morrison Financial's failed deals with surgical precision. She explained how their Shanghai contract had inadvertently implied that Chinese partners were intellectually inferior, how their Dubai presentation had scheduled meetings during prayer times, and how their São Paulo proposal had ignored crucial family business dynamics. "The translation services you're using focus on literal accuracy," Elena explained, "but they miss cultural context entirely. For example, in your Beijing proposal, you use the phrase cut to the chase, which your translator rendered as pursue and cut the hunt. In Mandarin business culture, this implies violence and aggression toward your partners." Marcus leaned forward, completely absorbed. "Our translators never mentioned any of this, because they're linguists, not cultural anthropologists. There's a significant difference." Elena pulled up another slide. "Your Dubai contract included a clause about gentlemen's agreements, which, when translated, implied that you questioned the honor and integrity of Emirati businessmen. In that culture, such an implication is deeply insulting." As Elena continued her presentation, she watched Marcus's expression change from skepticism to amazement, to something approaching awe. This was the same man who had mocked her accent just days before, now hanging on every word she spoke. "Dr. Vasquez, this is exactly what we need," Marcus said when she finished. "You've identified problems that have cost us millions, and you're the first consultant who's actually explained why these deals failed. When can you start?" Elena felt a surge of vindication mixed with sadness. The expertise had been there all along, invisible to Marcus until it came packaged in the right presentation. "I could begin immediately," Elena replied. "However, I should mention that my rates reflect the specialized nature of this work. Given the potential value of successful international expansion, I charge $3,000 per day for comprehensive cultural consulting. Done, Marcus said without hesitation. Though I have to ask, with credentials like yours, why approach a mid-tier firm like ours? You could be working with Fortune 500 companies. Elena had prepared for this question. Frankly, larger corporations often have too many layers of bureaucracy. They hire consultants and then ignore their advice. I prefer working with leadership teams who can make decisions quickly and implement changes effectively. Marcus beamed at the implied compliment. Well, you've certainly come to the right place. I believe in decisive action. They spent another 30 minutes discussing the scope of work, timeline, and logistics. Elena would start the following Monday, focusing first on salvaging the Dubai relationship, then moving to renegotiate the Shanghai deal. As the meeting concluded, Marcus walked Elena to the elevator. Dr. Vasquez, I have to say, this is exactly the kind of expertise we've been looking for. Your cultural insights are extraordinary. Elena pressed the elevator button, the same one she had pressed countless times while pushing her cleaning cart. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I look forward to working with your team. One last question, Marcus said as the elevator doors opened. Your English is impeccable, but I detect a slight accent. Spanish, perhaps? Elena stepped into the elevator and turned to face him, a slight smile playing at her lips. Guatemalan, actually. Though I've found that in business, it's not how you sound that matters. It's what you know. The elevator doors closed, leaving Marcus standing in the hallway with a puzzled expression. Something about that last comment felt familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. As Elena descended to the lobby, she allowed herself a moment of triumph. For the first time in 3 years, someone had valued her mind over her appearance, her expertise over her circumstances. It was a bittersweet victory, achieved only through elaborate deception, but it was a start. Now came the hard part, proving that the cleaning lady Marcus had dismissed could save his company millions of dollars. The irony was perfect, even if Marcus didn't know it yet. But Elena had a feeling he would soon find out. Elena spent the weekend preparing for her first day as Morrison Financial's cultural consultant. She arranged for her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, to cover her cleaning shifts temporarily, citing a family emergency. The irony of paying someone else to clean the offices where she would now consult wasn't lost on her. Monday morning arrived with unusual drama. Elena entered the building through the main lobby for the first time, signing in at the security desk as a visitor rather than using her employee entrance. The security guard, Mike, whom she had greeted every morning for 3 years, looked right through her without recognition. Sarah escorted Elena to a temporary office on the 38th floor, ironically, just 4 floors below where she had been cleaning toilets and emptying trash cans. The office came equipped with a computer, phone, and a view of Manhattan that Elena had never seen from this angle. Mr. Morrison wants to introduce you to the international team at 9, Sarah explained. He's very excited about this partnership. Addie. Exactly 9 o'clock. Elena walked into the conference room where Marcus had first mocked her accent. Now, she sat at the head of the table as 12 executives hung on her every word. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced proudly, I'd like you to meet Dr. Elena Vasquez, our new cultural consultant. Dr. Vasquez has identified critical errors in our international approach and will be leading our renewed expansion efforts. Elena began her presentation by speaking briefly in each of her 7 languages, then translating her words to demonstrate the cultural nuances that had been lost in their previous negotiations. The team was visibly impressed, several members taking notes furiously. The fundamental issue, Elena explained, is that you've been conducting international business through an American cultural lens. What seems straightforward and efficient to you may appear rude or disrespectful to partners from different cultural backgrounds. David, the young executive who had suggested looking for freelance consultants, raised his hand. Dr. Vasquez, can you give us specific examples of where we went wrong? Elena pulled up slides showing the actual contracts and communications. In your Beijing proposal, you opened with immediate business discussions. In Chinese culture, relationship building must precede any business talk. You should have spent the first meeting learning about their families, sharing meals, and establishing personal connections. She clicked to the next slide. For Dubai, you scheduled presentations during Ramadan without considering prayer times or fasting schedules. Additionally, you had women executives lead negotiations in a culture where such dynamics require careful navigation. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. This is exactly the kind of insight we've been missing. Dr. Vasquez, what's our next step? I've prepared culturally appropriate apology letters for both Beijing and Dubai, Elena replied. In Chinese culture, acknowledging mistakes shows wisdom and humility. In Emirati culture, formal apologies demonstrate respect and honor. I've also outlined new negotiation strategies that align with their cultural expectations. The meeting continued for 2 hours, with Elena fielding questions about everything from gift-giving protocols to appropriate dress codes for international meetings. By the end, the entire team was convinced they had found their solution to international expansion. As the executives filed out, chattering excitedly about their new strategy, Marcus lingered behind. Dr. Vasquez, I have to ask, how did you develop such deep knowledge of these cultures? Your insights go far beyond academic study. Elena had prepared for this question but still felt nervous answering it. I've lived and worked internationally. For many years, academic knowledge only takes you so far. True cultural competency requires immersion and experience. Well, your expertise is exactly what we need. I'm authorizing you to reach out directly to our international contacts. If anyone can salvage these relationships, it's you. That afternoon, Elena began making calls to Beijing and Dubai. Speaking in fluent Mandarin, she contacted the Chinese firm that had rejected Morrison Financial's proposal. After explaining the cultural misunderstandings and expressing sincere apologies, she secured a tentative agreement for a new meeting. The Dubai call was even more successful. Speaking in Arabic, Elena connected with the Emirati businessmen on a personal level, discussing shared values of family and respect. By the end of the conversation, they had agreed to reconsider the partnership. Elena felt a professional satisfaction she hadn't experienced in years. This was who she really was, not the invisible cleaning lady, but a skilled consultant capable of bridging cultural divides and facilitating international business. However, her secret was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. That evening, as she prepared to leave, she nearly collided with Carlos, the elderly janitor, in the hallway. Elena, Carlos exclaimed in Spanish. What are you doing on this floor, and dressed like that? Elena quickly pulled Carlos into an empty office and explained her situation. Carlos listened with growing amazement and concern. This is dangerous, he warned. What happens when they discover the truth? They won't, Elena insisted. I'm proving my value through results. By the time anyone figures it out, I'll have saved them millions and earned their respect. Carlos shook his head. Mija, lies have a way of revealing themselves. You should tell them the truth before they discover it on their own. But Elena was too intoxicated by her success to listen to Carlos's warnings. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like herself again, respected, valued, and intellectually challenged. Over the next few days, Elena's reputation within Morrison Financial grew exponentially. She successfully rescheduled the Beijing meeting, with the Chinese partners expressing genuine interest in renewed negotiations. The Dubai contact had agreed to a video conference to discuss potential partnership terms. Marcus was effusive in his praise, telling anyone who would listen about his brilliant new consultant. He even mentioned her to the board of directors, describing her as a game changer for our international expansion. Elena was working late Thursday evening, preparing for the upcoming international calls, when she heard familiar sounds in the hallway, the squeaking wheels of a cleaning cart. She had forgotten that her replacement would be working on this floor. Peeking out of her office, Elena saw Maria, a young woman from Honduras who had recently joined the cleaning staff. Maria was struggling with the same industrial vacuum that Elena had wrestled with countless times. For a moment, Elena considered helping, But the risk was too great. Instead, she watched Maria work with the same invisible efficiency that Elena had perfected, unnoticed and unappreciated by the executives whose offices she cleaned. The parallel was stark and troubling. Elena had jumped from one side of the invisibility divide to the other, but she had done so through deception, rather than changing the system that created such divisions in the first place. As Elena gathered her materials to leave, she caught sight of her reflection in the office window. She looked professional, competent, and successful, everything she truly was but had been denied the opportunity to show. Tomorrow she would lead video conferences with international partners, potentially saving Morrison Financial from bankruptcy. But Carlos's words echoed in her mind. Lies have a way of revealing themselves. Elena pushed the thought aside and focused on her upcoming triumph. She had worked too hard and come too far to let doubt derail her now. Little did she know that tomorrow would bring the revelation she had been dreading, and the confrontation that would change everything. Friday morning arrived with an autumn chill that seemed to penetrate the glass walls of Morrison Financial. Elena arrived early, as she always had, but now she entered through the main lobby wearing her consulting attire. She felt confident about the day ahead. Video conferences with Beijing at 10 a.m. and Dubai at 2 p.m., both promising to restore Morrison Financial's international prospects. Marcus was already in the office, pacing excitedly in the conference room as technical staff prepared the video equipment. Dr. Vasquez, are you ready to make history? If these calls go well, we could be looking at combined deals worth over $100 million. I'm prepared, Elena replied, reviewing her notes one final time. I've spoken with both parties preliminary, and they're genuinely interested in moving forward. As the Beijing call began, Elena seamlessly switched between English and Mandarin, facilitating discussions with a cultural sensitivity that impressed everyone in the room. The Chinese partners, who had been dismissive and offended by Morrison Financial's previous approach, were now engaged and optimistic. They're actually smiling, whispered Janet, the head of international development. I've never seen them smile in any of our previous meetings. Elena negotiated preliminary terms, explaining each cultural nuance to the Morrison team, while maintaining perfect diplomatic protocol with their Chinese partners. By call's end, they had secured agreement for an in-person meeting in Shanghai. Within 2 weeks, Marcus was euphoric. Dr. Vasquez, that was masterful. You've accomplished more in 1 hour than we managed in 6 months of negotiations. Between meetings, Elena stepped out for coffee, feeling a professional pride she had almost forgotten existed. As she waited in line at the cafe across the street, her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter in Guatemala. Mama, I got accepted to the university program. I wish you could be here to celebrate with me. Elena's eyes welled with tears. All her sacrifices, the cleaning jobs, the invisible existence, the swallowed pride, had been for moments like this. Her daughter's future was secure, and now Elena was rebuilding her own professional life. Returning to Morrison Financial, Elena prepared for the Dubai video conference. However, as she entered the building lobby, she noticed unusual activity. Mike, the security guard, was speaking intensely with Sarah, Marcus's assistant, both of them looking troubled. Elena's stomach dropped as she approached the elevator, overhearing fragments of their conversation. Same name. Cleaning lady. 3 years. Sarah spotted Elena and approached with a confused expression. Dr. Vasquez, this is strange, but Mike here says we have an employee with the same name as you. Elena Vasquez works on the cleaning crew. Elena's carefully constructed world began to crumble. She forced a calm smile. Vasquez is a common surname. There must be dozens of Elena Vasquezes in New York, but Mike was studying her face intently. No, miss, it's not just the name. You look exactly like her. Same face, same height. Only difference is the clothes and… He paused, his realization dawning. And the way you talk. Sarah's eyes widened as understanding struck. Dr. Vasquez, have you ever worked at Morrison Financial before, in any capacity? The Dubai video conference was scheduled to begin in 30 minutes. Elena could hear Marcus in the conference room, boasting to the assembled executives about their miraculous consultant. Her professional triumph was minutes away, but her deception was unraveling even faster. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Elena said carefully, but her voice carried the slight tremor of someone whose world was collapsing. Mike pulled out his phone and showed Sarah a photo from the company security system. Elena in her cleaning uniform, taken just a week earlier. "That's our Elena Vasquez, the cleaning lady. Same person, I'd bet my life on it." Sarah stared at the photo, then at Elena, her expression shifting from confusion to shock to something approaching. Horror. "Oh my God. You're the woman Mr. Morrison was talking about. The one with the accent he complained about." Elena's carefully modulated voice cracked slightly. "Sarah, please listen to me." "No," Sarah interrupted, her professional composure fracturing. "No, this is insane. You've been lying to us. You've been lying to Mr. Morrison. He's about to go into the most important business call of his career with—" She struggled for words. "With the cleaning lady?" The lobby fell silent except for the mechanical hum of the air conditioning. Other employees were beginning to notice the commotion. Phones were being discreetly raised to record what was clearly becoming a dramatic confrontation. Elena made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of continuing to deny or make excuses, she straightened her shoulders and spoke with the dignity she had maintained through 3 years of invisibility. "Yes," she said clearly, her accent emerging naturally for the first time in days. "I am Elena Vasquez, and I have been cleaning your offices for 3 years. I am also Dr. Elena Vasquez, with a doctorate in applied linguistics, fluent in 7 languages, and the person who just saved your Beijing deal this morning." Sarah stared at her in stunned silence. "I was a professor and international business consultant in Guatemala before political violence forced my family to flee. When I arrived here, no one would recognize my credentials, hire me for professional work, or give me a chance to prove my capabilities. So I cleaned toilets and emptied trash cans while men like Marcus Morrison mocked my accent and assumed my intelligence based on my job title. By now, a small crowd had gathered in the lobby. Elena could see Marcus descending in the elevator, likely coming to find her for the Dubai call. "The only way I could get Marcus to listen to my expertise," Elena continued, her voice growing stronger, "was to pretend to be someone else. To hide the fact that the person he dismissed as unworthy of basic respect actually possesses exactly the knowledge he desperately needs." The elevator doors opened, and Marcus stepped out, immediately sensing the tension. "What's going on here? Dr. Vasquez, we need to prepare for Dubai." "Mr. Morrison," Sarah interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Meet Elena Vasquez. She's been cleaning your office for 3 years." Marcus looked from Sarah to Elena, his expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, recognition. Elena watched as his memory pieced together the fragments. Her accent, her presence in his office, the contracts she had been looking at, her parting comment about what matters in business. "You," he said slowly, his voice filled with a mixture of shock and something that might have been admiration. "You're the cleaning lady, the one I—" He trailed off, remembering his condescending words about speaking properly and staying away from important documents. Elena met his gaze steadily. "Yes, and in 15 minutes, you have a video conference with Dubai that could save your company from bankruptcy. The question is, do you want the cleaning lady who speaks 7 languages to lead that call, or do you want to find another consultant who will charge you $5,000 a day and deliver the same cultural incompetence that's been destroying your international relationships?" The lobby fell silent. Marcus stared at Elena, his world of assumptions crumbling around him. Here was a woman he had dismissed, ignored, and condescended to, and she had just proven herself more valuable to his company than any consultant he had ever hired. The Dubai call was waiting. His board of directors was expecting results, and the only person who could deliver them was standing in front of him. challenging everything he thought he knew about success, intelligence, and the value of human dignity. Marcus looked at Elena for a long moment, then at the crowd of employees who had witnessed this extraordinary revelation. Finally, he spoke. "Dr. Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying new respect and perhaps the beginning of shame. "We have a call to make.